Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us for House Calls, Real Docs, Real Talk. I'm your host, Mercedes Fuller. Today, we're going to help you tame your cholesterol. High cholesterol levels can be dangerous to your heart. So we have to keep that blood flowing because September 29th is World Heart Day. World Heart Day was created by the World Heart Federation and is supported by the American Heart Association. And its purpose is to inform people around the globe that cardiovascular disease, including heart disease and stroke, is the world's leading cause of death, claiming 18.6 million lives each year. The hope is that World Heart Day will motivate folks to control risk factors such as tobacco use, unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, and high cholesterol levels. All of that brings us full circle to our original topic, your cholesterol. Let's get started. With me this morning is Dr. Anne Marie Navarre, associate professor of medicine, cardiology at UT Southwestern Medical School in Dallas. Dr. Navarre, welcome. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Mercedes. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you here because we need so much help on this topic. Let's move on and get started with health in the headlines. Good health is always newsworthy, so each week we select one current headline that ties back to our topic at hand. We bring it right back to our table and ask our expert to respond. Now, I'm going to tell you this. This week's headline, it kind of has me a little scared because I'm a big fan of breakfast. Listen to this. This week's entry, it comes to us from the Washington Post, and here's the title. Eating too many eggs can still be risky, but most people don't have to give them up entirely, experts say. Now, Dr. Navarre, I'm going to be transparent with you this morning. I am a big breakfast person, and I love my eggs so many different ways: scrambled, fried, with cheese. And, I read the study, and it's recommending something like one egg, and I'm like a 3-egg guy. Help us out with this today.
So I'm going to make your life a lot better, Mercedes. The first thing I'll tell you is, of all the things that we as Americans need to worry about in our diet, eggs is not in the top 10. So we should be paying a lot more attention to things like saturated fats, trans fats, and sugars and unrefined carbohydrates, and really not eggs. So the American Heart Association guidelines for diet recommend that we try to keep our total cholesterol intake less than 300 milligrams a day. So eggs are a source of dietary cholesterol. One egg has just under 200 milligrams of cholesterol. But the good news is that most of that cholesterol is actually in the egg yolk. Actually, all of the cholesterol is in the egg yolk. So if you're a fan of eggs, the best thing to do is, if you want your 3-egg omelet, make it with 3 egg whites. And if you want the yolk, throw in one of those, but you can toss out the other 2. The reality is that for most of us, the amount of cholesterol that we eat in our diet doesn't have a whole lot to do with how much cholesterol ends up in our blood. Most of that is determined by our genetics and not by our diet. So when I say most of us, I mean those of us who don't have extremely high LDL cholesterol levels. So we do recommend avoiding dietary cholesterol in people whose LDL are over 190 or even over 160. But beyond that, you're probably okay having 1 egg a day. And if your cholesterol is okay, your blood cholesterol is okay, you could probably increase that to 2 or even 3 eggs. But probably the easiest thing to do is just focus on those egg whites instead.
Absolutely. Dr. Navarre, see, that's why we called you today, because we needed so much help. So I'm already starting to take notes. You're helping me out. Let's get into our main segment. We call this segment You Ask, We Answer. As you can tell, we have so many questions. I already started off with my questions, but there are a lot of questions in the queue because so many people, Dr. Navarre, have so much confusion as it pertains to cholesterol and how to make sure we're doing what we have to do to maintain a healthy cholesterol. So let's see if we can clear up some things for people today. Let's get to it. Our first question comes to us from Ruth in Illinois. Ruth wants to know, what do the numbers on my cholesterol report mean? Very good question.
So cholesterol lives in our bodies in several different forms. It's packaged up into these things that we call lipoproteins. And there's several different types of lipoproteins that you get reported on in your cholesterol test. You see LDL cholesterol. That's what we traditionally call bad cholesterol. So that's the cholesterol that causes heart disease and causes atherosclerotic disease, which increases your risk of stroke. So the LDL cholesterol is the one that you want as low as possible. So in people with heart disease, we want that less than 70 or often less than 55. If you don't have heart disease, the optimal number for that is having an LDL cholesterol less than 100. You'll also see HDL cholesterol. So this is actually good cholesterol. This decreases your risk of heart disease. And HDL is affected by exercise and alcohol intake. So small amounts of alcohol and good amounts of exercise can raise your HDL cholesterol. HDL, if it's high, so over about 50, means you're at lower risk of heart disease. So it's a good thing. Now, there's another number on there that's the total cholesterol, and that's sort of all the cholesterol added. And I just tell people don't pay attention to that number at all because it's something good plus something bad. So it's sort of a useless number. You really want to focus on those components of LDL and HDL. The final thing that we have is the triglycerides. And triglycerides are the fat in the blood. And they go along with cholesterol, and they're often packaged in the same particles. So triglycerides are another risk factor for heart disease. So if your triglyceride level is over 150, you're considered at higher risk than other people with normal triglycerides, and you need to think about other ways to improve your heart health. Some people have really high triglycerides, like over 500, and those people are at risk of pancreatitis and need their triglycerides especially lowered with medicine. Now, the final piece I'll say about triglycerides is some people with triglycerides over 150 can take medication that can help lower their risk of heart disease, particularly people with diabetes or people who have established heart disease. And that's a prescription strength, high dose form of fish oil that has been shown to lower the risk of cardiovascular events in people with high triglycerides. But if you don't have diabetes and you don't have heart disease and your triglycerides are over 150, the most important thing is to figure out what else you can do to lower your risk of heart disease, not just the triglycerides.
So much great information. Basically, we just need to know our numbers. We need to know our numbers. We can't say that enough. Here's a question from Julie in Canada. Julie wants to know, how often should I have my cholesterol checked?
Great question. And probably the biggest thing that we could do at a population level to help lower our risk of heart disease is to have more information about our own risk. And so the recommendations from the Heart Association are to have your cholesterol checked starting in adulthood about every 5 years. You want it checked more frequently if you're on medication to lower cholesterol or you've had changes in your health, like you've developed diabetes or had big increases or decreases in weight or changes in your diet. But at minimum, you want to have a cholesterol test every 5 years. And your primary care doctor should order that as part of your routine physical.
Very good. Every 5 years. I'm going to put that on my calendar. Here's another question. It's coming to us from Thornton out in South Dakota. Is it recommended to take cholesterol lowering meds if your numbers are normal? And how high is too high?
So this is something that has changed over time and is really confusing, not just for the general public, but for doctors as well. So the first thing is, it's really hard to know what normal cholesterol is. If we look at human populations that are largely in hunter-gatherer societies that have lots of physical activity, lots of fruit and vegetable intake, their LDL cholesterols are in the 30s and 40s. So we don't need that much LDL cholesterol to survive. Now, when we talk about normal, we're really looking at the distribution of cholesterol in the population. But our general Western civilization population cholesterols are probably not normal as a whole. So when we talk about what's normal, it's really important to think about not what's normal, but what's ideal. So what's an ideal cholesterol for each individual person? And it varies. So if you don't have heart disease or a bunch of risk factors for heart disease, the ideal LDL cholesterol is less than 100. Because above 100, you start increasing your risk of heart disease. Just like we talk about smoking in pack years, we now can think about cholesterol like cholesterol years. So for all the amount of cholesterol, LDL over 100 you have over many, many years, you start to build up cholesterol in your arteries. Now, a lot of people develop heart disease or have plaques in their arteries, even though their LDL cholesterol is less than 100. And that means that that LDL cholesterol may be normal for a population, but it's not normal for you. So if you have heart disease or you have evidence of cholesterol buildup in your arteries, either on a scan or a coronary calcium test, then you need to get your LDL cholesterol even lower. In people who have established heart disease, we want LDL cholesterols to be less than 70 or even into the 50s. Because we know that if we can get your LDL cholesterol into the mid-50s or below, your body can actually start reabsorbing the cholesterol plaques that have formed in your arteries that are the start of the lesions that turn into heart attacks in the future. So if you really want to know what your target LDL cholesterol is, you should sit down with your doctor, get your numbers checked, and then look at all of your risk factors for heart disease. And if you have a bunch of risk factors for heart disease, say smoking or family history of premature heart disease, or some of these other cholesterol factors we talked about, like a low HDL or high triglycerides, your doctor may very well recommend that your LDL cholesterol be less than 100.
Absolutely. So much great information. Here's another question coming to us from Jean. Is high cholesterol due to my lifestyle or heredity, or is it a combination of both?
I want to reassure the audience, so many people get their cholesterol checked and are just completely demoralized because they eat right, they exercise, they've done everything right, and their LDL cholesterol is high. And the reason for that is that for the majority of us, the cholesterol levels in our body are determined by our genes, and they're not determined by what we eat or what we do. That's not to say that diet and lifestyle are not important. So two things I'll say about that is you